Welcome to Think Grow, where we cover trending news of World Day 3. I'm honestly so glad you're joining us for today's explainer, because we have got a staggering amount of ground to cover. But right off the bat, before we even touch on the massive geopolitical shifts unfolding today, I have to draw your attention to that deeply disturbing story featured in today's thumbnail, a recently buried grave, desecrated under some truly horrifying circumstances. It's a story that challenges our very sense of humanity, and I promise you, we're going to reveal the full, shocking details right at the end of this explainer, so definitely stick with me for that.
Okay, looking at today's agenda, we are covering massive ground. 1. The US-Iran war ripple. 2. Geopolitical shifts and scandals. 3. A pressing hantavirus outbreak. And 4. Some shocking realities.
All right, diving right into Section 1, the US-Iran war ripple.
So the diplomatic impasse we're currently seeing right now is pretty stark. On one side, Iran is demanding the lifting of the U.S. naval blockade, explicit recognition of sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz, and compensation for war damages. But on the other side, former U.S. President Donald Trump has immediately and outright dismissed this proposal as, quote, totally unacceptable. It really illustrates this massive gap between negotiating positions, and that has immediate real-world consequences.
And those consequences? Well, they lead us right here. Because of this diplomatic deadlock, the Strait of Hormuz, which is a virtually irreplaceable global waterway, remains effectively shut down. So the crucial takeaway here is that this closure is severely disrupting energy shipments all around the world, causing oil prices to just jump significantly. This isn't just empty political rhetoric anymore. We're talking about a massive, quantifiable impact hitting global markets in real time. And these consequences are literally rippling across the globe. Take India, for example. Prime Minister Modi is urging citizens to work from home and actually limit foreign travel. It's a drastic austerity measure to save fuel and foreign exchange amid these jumping oil prices. Meanwhile, inside Iran, severe trauma is mounting for civilians who are struggling with both the conflict and government-imposed internet bans. Yet, in a really rare human rights development amidst all this chaos, the ailing Iranian Nobel laureate Narges Mohammadi has actually been granted bail and transferred to a hospital. So it's this incredibly complex web of economic austerity on one hand and profound human trauma on the other.
Moving on to Section 2, Geopolitical Shifts and Scandals.
Let's start this off in Thailand. Consider the arc of one of the country's absolute most divisive figures, ex-Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra. For the last 3 decades, he and his political dynasty have just completely loomed large over Thai politics. Then came his imprisonment. But look at the present day. He is now officially out of jail. As recent reports note, Thaksin seems basically incapable of taking a back seat. But the huge question right now is whether his era is finally over, or if, this time things really could be different.
And honestly, Thailand is just one piece of an incredibly busy global board where stability is really being put to the test right now. Up in Canada, they're seeing their biggest military recruitment surge in 30 years just to boost lagging defenses. Over in the US and China, Donald Trump's first visit to China in almost a decade is threatening to totally upend a fragile tariff truce. Politically, the Philippines is reeling as Vice President Sara Duterte faces a second impeachment, which could actually disqualify her from the presidency. Meanwhile, traditions are shifting with a notably scaled-back Victory Day parade in Russia's Red Square. And finally, down in Australia, a highly tense manhunt may have just concluded, with police finding a body believed to be a fugitive wanted for a shocking triple murder. The sheer volume of global shifts happening today is just staggering.
Okay, let's pivot to Section 3, hantavirus outbreak and hazards.
Right now, we're tracking a terrifying hantavirus outbreak that is literally moving at the speed of modern travel. It all started aboard the MV Hondias cruise ship, and while Ushuaia, Argentina, the famous tourist hotspot down at the end of the world, while they're denying causing the outbreak, the virus has already reached Europe. A French national returning from the ship is currently isolating in Paris, with 5 others quarantined, and now it has officially crossed into the US, with an American national flown straight to a Nebraska medical center. It's a pretty stark reminder of just how interconnected our world truly is.
And speaking of ignoring borders and warnings, we also have some breaking news coming out of Indonesia. Huge plumes of ash are rising as Mount Dakono has officially erupted. But terrifyingly, officials are reporting that a group of hikers were caught right up on the active volcano when it blew. And get this, they had completely ignored a strict official climbing ban. It's an incredibly hazardous situation, obviously made exponentially more dangerous by human choices.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 4, Shocking Realities and Human Rights.
Before we get to our main story, there are some pretty heavy historical and cultural ripples making waves right now. First off, Eurovision is facing its absolute biggest boycott in 70 years over Israel's participation, and it's raising some very serious questions about the competition's whole future. Meanwhile, over in Europe, there's been an astonishing discovery. A portrait believed to be plundered by high-ranking Nazi Hermann Göring during World War II has shockingly surfaced in a Dutch SS leader's family home. On a much more resilient note, in the Middle East, thousands gathered for the Palestine Marathon in Bethlehem after a 2-year pause. And finally, just on a slightly lighter note, hotels are officially cracking down on the notorious Dawn Dash for sunbeds. Yeah, actually, after one man won a payout, resorts are now enforcing allocation rules right from check-in just to stop that 6 a.m. towel scramble.
Okay, let's dive into this. We have covered global wars, shifting borders, and viral outbreaks. But I promised you at the very beginning of this explainer that we would return to the image from today's thumbnail. It's a deeply disturbing story that genuinely challenges the very core of our shared humanity. So, what exactly is the shocking reality behind that desecrated grave?
Well, the unvarnished facts as they're being reported today are stark and honestly horrifying. In the West Bank, which is an area fraught with deep tensions, an incident occurred that really defies basic human decency. Reports confirm that a Palestinian man whose father had only just been buried was forced by settlers to literally dig up his own father's body. Now, we aren't here to take political sides, but the sheer emotional violence of a son being forced to exhume his recently deceased father, that is a tragedy that reverberates far, far beyond any political lines. It's just a deeply traumatic human event.
To really understand the global reaction to this, we turn to the UN Human Rights Office, who immediately condemned the incident. They called the forced exhumation, quote, appalling and emblematic of the dehumanization of Palestinians in the West Bank. It is a sobering, highly authoritative condemnation of what is a profound human rights violation.
Which ultimately leaves us with this final overarching question. From the massive, macro scale of the US-Iran war, practically closing the Strait of Hormuz, all the way down to the deeply personal agony of a man forced to unearth his own father's grave, how do these massive global conflicts and these deeply personal violations shape our shared humanity? It's an awful lot to process, I know, but understanding these connections is exactly why we do what we do here. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I eagerly look forward to seeing you back here for World Day 4.